European Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell has warned that West Asia is close to seeing the conflict Israel and Gaza conflict expanding into Lebanon just days after Iran-backed Hezbollah threatened Israel and Cyprus. Last week, Hezbollah chief Syed Hassan Nasrallah said that nowhere in Israel would be safe if a fully fledged war breaks out between the two foes. He also threatened EU member Cyprus for the first time in other parts of the Mediterranean.
No, I am more worried, much more worried, much more. Every day the crises are spilling over. Every day there are more bombing on both sides of the border in Lebanon. Until that unhappily we are on the eve of the war spending.
Meanwhile, EU members Greece and Germany have both sounded alarm over Hezbollah's threats against Cyprus.
It is absolutely unacceptable to make threats against a sovereign state of the European Union. We stand by Cyprus and we will all be together in all kinds of global threats coming from terrorist organizations.
As fears of a major Israeli offensive in Lebanon continue to mount, Iran has warned Israel that it would be the ultimate loser in a war against Hezbollah, asserting that the Iran-backed group is capable of defending itself as well as Lebanon. Threats were returned by Israel too, as Foreign Minister Israel Katz said they will soon make necessary decisions about confronting the Lebanese group. Katz added that the world must unconditionally stand with Israel in its war against the axis of evil led by Iran. The looming threats appear to have rattled the Israeli government. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now says he is ready for a partial deal with Hamas to return some hostages, while shifting focus from Gaza to Lebanon, redeploying forces in the north of Israel.
אבל אחרי סיום השלב העצים, תהיה לנו אפשרות להעתיק חלק מהכוח צפונה. ואנחנו נעשה את זה. קודם כל למטרות הגנה, ושנית, כדי להחזיר גם את התושבים שלנו הביתה. אם נוכל, נעשה את זה בדרך מדינית, אם לא, נעשה את זה בדרך אחרת. אבל אנחנו נחזיר את כולם הביתה, את כל תושבי הצפון וגם תושבי הדרום.
Reports say Israel's army is in urgent need of troops amid rising casualties in Gaza. Enlisting more troops is becoming difficult due to rising public opposition to the war and an open conflict between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his defense minister. Glenn Carl is a former national intelligence officer from the CIA and national security and foreign policy expert. Mr. Carl is joining us from Boston. Welcome to the program, and I want us to make this quick because I have so many questions for you. The first one is, what is U.S. message and intention with regards to a war with Hezbollah when it's meeting the Israeli defense minister and assuring of all weapons?
The message is the continued effort by President Biden and the administration to keep the war from spreading and actually to bring the current Gaza war to an end. That everything else would be disastrous.
Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu is putting an adamant face even when he has to deal with the threats of Israel's borders. How will he manage a war with Lebanon if the Hezbollah threat explodes or even escalates?
Well, his tradition on the far right of the Israeli political spectrum has been pretty Cold Warrior hardcore. One of his predecessors invaded Lebanon in 1982. Netanyahu found this a wise position to take. Similarly with Gaza, he invaded Gaza after Hamas's attack. And I think that he would conduct a war vigorously, but the consequences invariably, frankly, have been, I think, worse for Israel than the gains in each instance of that policy.
Mm-hmm. Now, the U.S. says that it will stay clear of involvement if a war erupts between Israel and Lebanon. There are also reports of U.S. officials cautioning Israel on iron domes likely to get overwhelmed in case of Hezbollah attack. What is the message that Washington is passing to its ally, Israel?
Well, consistently, President Biden has tried to restrain Netanyahu from the policy. From the beginning, the American administration, has warned that an invasion of Gaza, an all-out war, as the one Netanyahu's conducted, could not achieve the objectives that Netanyahu and the far right in Israel set. That they could not destroy Hamas. Similarly, in a war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, the damage to Lebanon and to Israel would be certain, and destroying the threat from Hezbollah is almost impossible.
There is another concern. Europeans fear that Middle East is on the brink after unacceptable Hezbollah threats. Who, in your view, can pacify or even quell this tension from turning ugly?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, or I guess we have to say $640,000 question with inflation. Well, the U.S. is the only country really that can restrain Israel, but its power to do so is always more limited than most people would hope is the case, because there are all sorts of implied costs to the United States from doing that. But it would be the U.S., and the U.S. has so far successfully, not only the U.S., successfully kept the Gaza war from expanding. And I have to say, I'm no friend of the Iranian regime, but Iran has clearly indicated and acted in a way that shows it does not want the war to expand either.
And talking about Iran, do you see a possibility of Iran itself getting drawn directly, given the situation as it is unfolding currently?
Oh, I do see the risk of that, but I think the likelihood, let's assume for a moment a war between Israel and Hezbollah, that would be catastrophic, not just for those two entities, one a country and the other a movement, I guess. But the United States has said that it will not become involved. And I think Iran has made more belligerent noises, but also would try to stay out while supporting its surrogates and trying to exploit the situation that way. But the risks of it extending are always real. Had any of Iran's missiles succeeded a month or two ago in striking Israel, then we would be living in a different world now. I think Iran was happy that they didn't, but it only takes one.
All right, it only takes one. Glenn Carl is a former national intelligence officer from the CIA and also national security and foreign policy expert. Mr. Carl, thank you for talking to us today.
Anytime.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.